Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Happy Hour podcast. This is Ray.
This is Matt.
And Mike.
How you guys doing tonight? As we know shortly, we're going to be live with the Hollywood Horror Museum, probably in about a half an hour or so. We're going to call in to Chris and Aubrey. They're going to explain to us everything that is the Hollywood Horror Museum, all the exhibits they're going to have. But first, before that, what we're going to do, we're going to get a little bit into horror movies and serial killers. So, obviously we've talked about on previous episodes, and we all know that I'm a big Friday the 13th guy. Mike, we know you like Nightmare on Elm Street. But Matt, we don't really know much about...
like I said, I'm not really like a, horror, fan. Like, I just don't really watch it that much.
Get out. Get out of my house.
Just doesn't really interest me that much. Like the possession stuff, like the demonic, like the exorcisms and shit, that shit freaks me out.
Does it just not resonate with you, or
just I don't like it. I don't fucking like it. It just freaks me out. And then like the slasher
okay, so it's
thing,
not something you think's corny, or you're like, eh.
No. I'm just it generally it just like freaks me the fuck out. But then like slasher movies, they just don't do it for me because like a dude running around with a fucking machete like chasing me, dude, I'm gonna blow you in the next week. Like
I thought you were just gonna say I will.
I might have
stop at the part.
Yeah. Let's just stop at the part where someone's being blown. Let's talk about that. Oh, hey, look, you got a knife. Hey, take your pants off for a second.
How else am I gonna get myself out of that situation? Could you see Jason like, hey, okay.
Well, speaking of Freddy, and what's funny is we have a lot of porn associated with this podcast. Is that they have a parody of everything, and they had a Nightmare on Elm Street parody where Freddy had dick fingers.
Oh God!
And it was the greatest thing in the world. I forgot what it was called, but he legitimately had dick fingers.
Mm.
And now, Mike, growing up, what made you so big in Freddy?
It was the first horror movie I'd ever seen in theaters. So just having that theater experience. It was part 4. That was probably, let's see, what year did that come out in? I want to say that came out in
Part 4
89.
Part 4 was the first one you saw in theaters?
In theaters, yes.
Okay,
yes.
cool. I thought
I'd seen them prior at home, but
okay, I thought you were much more ancient than what you actually were.
Much in the same way, much in the same way I'd seen wrestling prior to watching WrestleMania 4 on pay-per-view. It was kind of the same deal. The theater atmosphere is what hooked me in, and I was into horror movies since.
Yeah, and me, of course, like Friday the 13th. Pretty much what it is, and I don't know if she's watching live. I don't really see the feed of who's watching live right now. But what used to happen is when I was a kid, my mom would watch the horror movies, and she would be too scared to watch them by herself. However, my dad was like, I'm not watching that shit. And he would go to bed or, whatever, all that. So she would make me, a 3 or 4 year old child, watch the horror movies with her. And her going from scared to seeing me terrified and laughing at me terrified really kind of made her not scared anymore.
It was comforting to her to see you in absolute terror.
Oh yeah, dude.
Okay.
Get this.
That explains a lot.
Get this. My parents were so fucked up that when Chucky came out.
Oh, bro.
Oh,
Chucky.
dude. Yeah.
Fuck Chucky.
Yeah.
That's one thing. I'm sorry. I don't mean to.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
I hate Chucky. Like ever since I was a little boy.
Dolls, nah.
I don't even like dolls. Period. Not even fucking porcelain. Fuck that. I will smash that fucking porcelain face.
Fuck that. And I was tormented as a child because if you remember when the Chucky movies came out, they had the My Buddy dolls.
Mm.
And there's no fucking way that Chucky and My Buddy were not one another. Like, whoever manufactured My Buddy doll were like, we're making money off of parents terrorizing their children.
Absolute influence there.
So,
even down to the blue overalls.
Oh, yeah, dude. It was the exact thing. I don't know if Chucky was made off that or if I think they came out after Chucky was out. Because my mom and dad got me one. And it sat on my bed. Literally, I would go to like kindergarten, whatever it was, first grade, whatever it was, and they would put the fucking thing on the pillows, looking at my doorway. And every time I would walk in, it'd be sitting there in the middle of the bed, and I'd just scream and run out of the room.
Now, was that a case of just sitting on your bed, so it would be on the floor, or was it intentionally done?
It was intentionally. It was placed. It was staged. that way. They staged the fucker like that. So here's the thing. I walk in, I see it. There's been so many times I would take it, throw it out of the room. I threw it out the window once. I threw it out of the window. I threw it in a dumpster and all that.
So much like in the movies, you throw it away, take it outside, and the next day it's back again.
Oh, yeah. They fucking went out there. They got it. They fucking brought the thing fucking back. They tormented me as a child. You wonder why I'm fucked up. It's because my parents absolutely tormented me with a fucking My Buddy doll. And it's bad enough that I also... You guys remember Teddy Ruxpin?
Yeah. Yep, with the cassette tapes in it.
Yeah. I had a big...
I think we're all showing our age now.
Oh, yeah, we're all... well, here's the thing. I just saw today that Macaulay Culkin just turned 40 years old. Do you know how fucking old that I now feel? Knowing the fact that he's 40 years old, it's like, Jesus H. Christ. He was a kid when I was a kid. Like, holy shit.
Yep. No longer spring chickens, gentlemen.
But getting back to that, I had a Snoopy that you would stick a cassette tape in its back. And he would move his arms.
Freddy Krueger, Jason, Snoopy.
Yeah. He would move. No. I'm getting to the horror of it. He would move his arms and legs, and he would talk, and all that shit. So I used to sleep with it in bed. I was a child. Don't even go there with me sleeping with the thing in bed. So I'm sleeping with it, and I accidentally hit the switch on his back. So I hit the switch on his back, so the fucking thing starts talking and moving and all that, and his hand's hitting me in the face as I'm sleeping. I'm like, oh, Jesus fucking Christ. So I threw the fucking... They had to get rid of that. So, that's the thing. Today, you would not release a toy like My Buddy doll with Chucky that just came out today. That the kids would not be able to handle.
I can imagine that was a common prank back in the 80s and early 90s with Teddy Ruxpin putting some kind of demonic tape in it.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
I got a crazy story that it recently happened, too. We got this package in the mail. I don't remember who it was from. I think from, one of Kim's, old, old people that she works with. Sent us a package, and it had, what's those... Raggedy Ann dolls.
Oh, Raggedy Ann sucks.
And I'm like, didn't know it was, what's in this? And I'm fucking opening it up, and it's these fucking old-ass Raggedy Ann dolls. And I'm like, yep, I'm burning these motherfuckers.
Well, isn't the actual Annabelle doll a Raggedy Ann doll?
I think it is.
And
I think the actual legit Annabelle doll
literally burned those things. They no longer exist.
Well, that's the thing. Like, a lot of people might know with me is that I flip a lot of stuff. I go to thrift stores, get stuff, flip a lot of stuff. I'm very, very hesitant on buying dolls because of movies like that. Buying dolls because I'm like, how do I fucking know that this doll was, how do I know it's not cursed and someone placed it here in this thrift store? Or they were like, we need to get rid of this, so they donated it to a thrift store.
It's not a bad idea for a movie. Even though that theme's been done to death, you can always come up with a new twist.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And see, the thing is also, and you remember, because when we would deliver stuff, I hated going into houses or buildings that had paintings, like portrait paintings of people, because no matter where you are in the house, you see the eyes follow you.
Is it the style? Is it just like an oil painting type that just does it? Can it be modern, but it's still that style?
Yeah, any type of actual painting that is on a wall, no matter where you stand in the house, the eyes are gleaming at you.
And what is that? Ghostbusters 2?
Yeah. Vigo, the Carpathian. Yeah, it's kind of like that, and it's like the eyes are absolutely crazy. So and moving forward, let's see, we're okay. So we're good on time. Moving forward, now we said we were going to talk about serial killers also. Now, we know all the serial killers that are out there. We know Ted Bundy. We know Ed Gein. We know all that. There was one time when me and you were out on the road, and me and you we would get into shit just talking. We'd be in a truck together.
All hypothetical.
No, yeah. Like 4, 5, 9 hours on the road just talking about shit.
Yeah, none of us are actually crazy.
Thanks. Now they all know at home that we're crazy.
Just a time killer.
So... we brought up the subject of, I don't know if you asked me or if I asked you, and I was like, I think you just happened to say in passing, you were like, hey.
Well, now, the way it started was how easy, if you think about it, how easy it would be to get away with a random murder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go 5 states away. Nobody knows you.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about
unregistered weapon.
The best thing that you could be is a truck driver, because you look at it. Okay, so you have a body in the back.
All right, guys.
And
nice.
so you have a body you have cut up in multiple pieces, and we were talking about this. So you cut up the body, so you drop off a piece of the body in Maryland.
Are you sure we should be doing this?
You drop off a piece in Virginia. They're fine. They're fine. If they're sensitive, they're already tuned out. There's only 2 watchers. You're good.
I'm talking about the FBI. Are you kidding?
These guys. They have too much going on right now in Wyoming to be watching us. So trust me, they're not watching us. So
the 2 people watching are truck drivers.
Yeah. The 2 people watching are like, we're watching this. Yeah. You're gonna be human trafficked all night. But no, I mean, you look at it, it's like, and I think some serial killers actually were truck drivers, because it's like, you go, you can cover a lot of ground. You
go to somewhere that, at 5 states away. Yeah. That's where they say you can commit adultery and shit.
Oh yeah,
cheat on your wife, no one will fucking know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like
until someone comes knocking, hey, you can have a baby. Shit.
And you sit there and you think to yourself, there's always somebody at some point. You sit there and you look, you're like, I just want to kill this guy. Like there honestly, dude, there was a guy at our work that I hated so much. I was like, I could commit my random murder on him. I hate him. He's a salesperson. He was a sales guy.
I was just going to ask you, are his initials TP?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Right. He was one of those people that you just hated his... How do I want to say it?
It wouldn't be random, though.
You hated his well-being. Like, just him being there, him taking breaths. It's like, I don't like
his
this
presence.
Guy.
Just
yeah, his presence. Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. His presence just bothered you, and we made fun of him so very bad. His name was Todd Patrick, and
right, just throw it out.
Yeah. His name was Todd. His name was fuck Todd Patrick. He ain't listening to this shit. Fuck him. So his name was Todd Patrick. So we would sit there. And we would make fun of him.
I still work with people that know him, right?
He doesn't work with you anymore. So his name was Todd Patrick, and I'm not going to murder Todd Patrick. So for anybody watching at home,
on the record, okay,
good. Yeah, on the record. So we would fuck with him, and we would sit there and we would make fun of him, and we would say his name backwards because he did everything ass backwards. So we called him D. Kurtap. And every time Mike would look at the paperwork or something would go wrong at a customer's office, he'd be like, "Yep, D. Kurtap, here we go."
Shit. But no, see, look, I don't really watch those scary horror movies where hacking slashers and all that shit. Now, every once in a while I do, but I do watch some serial killer things, not because I am a serial killer, but just because I find them interesting. These people that they're sociopaths and they're geniuses basically. Yeah. Have you ever seen the?
They seem to be on the opposite end of the spectrum. They're either completely out of it and deranged, or they are insanely intelligent,
or they're both.
But usually they're pretty intelligent. Where they're not in one spot, they're kind of like but other spots they excel in.
Oh yeah,
killing people.
Look at Ted Bundy. Look at how smart he was. He represented himself in court. He was practicing law.
He was that much of a narcissist, though, too, that he thought for sure he had it in the bag.
But also, when he would meet people, the people that he would encounter that he would kill, the stories that he would tell them in such a convincing way. He was such a storyteller.
He was a charmer.
When it came up to that people would never suspect, oh, well, this guy is going to have my head in the freezer by the end of the night. Joe Gacy, though, or John Gacy? John Gacy. Sorry to Joe Gacy, the wrestler out there. John Gacy. And that's what he based his gimmick off of was, he loves horror, John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy, if I met that guy, especially as a clown, as I said, first of all, fuck clowns. Like, a dude who dresses up as a clown, no doubt, is a homicidal murderer.
Or seriously depressed.
Yeah.
Really. You need to look at your life. I'm sorry.
Anybody who has seen the movie It, which that's another one for the whole horror thing. The movie It, that people that dress up like
the newer ones?
Oh, the newer ones are great.
I like the newer ones.
Like, nothing will ever beat Tim Curry as Pennywise.
No, of course not. But he did a good job.
Oh yeah, the new ones were solid.
I remember his name. Did you see him?
I did.
Yeah.
I thought to me, the remake was better than the original.
Oh yeah,
really?
I think what it is, there's so much left of the book. There's so much unexplored with the book, and I like that in the second one they kind of got into the history of Pennywise.
That's why I liked it more.
Yeah.
Given the background info and where they can go and branch off with it is what I
like
about it.
They got into the history of Pennywise. So, you sit there and you think, well, is there enough content in that book to where you can kind of explore? You can kind of go out and kind of do like book content, but also kind of do an original story. Because Pennywise, that character, whatever it is, has been around for hundreds of years. So,
exactly. With that bit of information, you can plug that character and that personality into different settings, different time periods, like you mentioned, and have an entirely different storyline, again, a different branching path.
Yeah, and they focus mainly on them and Derry. So, what happened in Derry 300 years ago? All that. I heard there was a cutscene from that movie. I don't know if you heard about it, but there was a cutscene from the second, I think it was the second one. Yeah, the second one. That pretty much it started off with Pennywise. And it shows him terrorizing a girl back in the early 1900s. And he's already killed her whole family. And she's sitting there and she's holding her baby in her hand and all that. And he's doing his weird little crawl stuff or whatever and all that. And she's like, how can I get you to leave me alone? And pretty much the whole thing was he was pretty much like, well, give me the baby. If you give me your baby, I go away. And so apparently the scene was cut because it was so graphic. But apparently what she did is she was in tears. She gave him the baby, and the screen cuts away. You see him, his teeth turn out or whatever and all. You see him go, ah, and then go to bite down, and the screen cuts away. And you hear the baby screaming, and you hear him chomping on the baby while the girl's crying in the background. And I can see why they cut it.
Now,
but
did you see the Halloween, the 2018 Halloween
movie?
Oh,
yeah.
Do you remember the scene where he walks past the baby's crib, the baby's in there, and he stops?
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw it in the theater or not, but everybody does a collective gasp.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, is he going to? Is he not?
Yeah.
And then he kept walking. Everybody's like, ah.
Yeah, I saw it in theaters, and when he stopped, everybody was like, oh. And, literally, Jess does not like horror movies. She likes, Paranormal Activity, stuff like that, The Conjuring, movies like that. Me, I'm straight rip their fucking spines out of their backs. That's what I want to see.
That's where we differ. Yeah. I'm more into the supernatural end of the spectrum, whereas you
we talked about it before. I don't like that shit.
Again, I don't want to Freddy over Jason because of the supernatural aspect.
I don't want to fight something that I cannot see.
Yeah, and that's
impossible to fight.
Yeah,
like you said, in real life you can just blow them and it's over.
Really?
Oh, it's kind of like what was it, Scary Movie 2, when the ghost had sex with the chick, and you just see her going up the wall, and all that. And the next thing you know, they're having sex on the ceiling. And all that, that's the way it would be.
Hey, Freddy, put that burnt sausage in my mouth.
But, see, back to what we were talking about. With
especially if he's got that fucking...
the dick finger?
Yeah. I'll be fucking him with it. He'll be like, woo!
Yeah. But, no, I mean, with Halloween, that scene right there is what did it. But I remember there was a movie... And I feel like it's very underrated. It's one of the best horror movies I've seen in years. You introduced me to it. You kept on telling me for months and months and months and months. Terrifier. Terrifier
to watch that.
Was awesome. I told Matt last week, make sure you watch Terrifier. You have to watch Terrifier.
I'll try.
Especially the scene with the saw. When he has the handsaw. And I'm not going to ruin it for Matt. People are watching at home. They know what scene I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I didn't know, and this is old school War Pigs quote, I didn't know whether I wanted to come or cry when I saw that scene. That was the whole thing. Yeah, Matt's like, wait. Matt's like, I have to go home and watch this movie tonight. Now I need to watch it. So...
I'm probably going to come, by the way.
And that wasn't even in theaters. That was a direct release, wasn't it?
Yes.
Which most horror movies, the reason why I strayed away from it for so long is because most horror movies that are direct release aren't that great. I don't really particularly
They're not, and I was apprehensive about watching it at first for that reason. Yeah. And I'm thinking, let's give it a shot. And I'd say within a matter of weeks of watching it, it had already been out for a little while when I initially saw it. But it seems like a month later, so a month or two later, I hear more and more people talking about it. I see more and more about that character, Art the Clown on social media. And I'm like, okay, this is actually a thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I understand why. It was a good movie.
Oh, man, Art the Clown is, to me, Art the Clown is up there with Jason.
For a character that doesn't speak, again,
oh, yeah.
Another one of those, there's a lot of depth to it.
Oh, yeah. And there's a second one they're working on now. And I think they're going to try to release the second one in theaters. Whenever theaters open, whatever's going to happen with that. I'm upset because really, I think, and I'm not sure if it was this month or October when the new Halloween was going to come out. Yes. Halloween Kills. So, Halloween Kills was going to come out. And I'm excited for that because just by the teasers that they showed with Halloween Kills, that looks good. Just the whole, I don't know if you saw it, but with the house on fire, and you see the fire department just zoom by, and you hear Laurie Strode yell, "Let it burn! Let it burn!" You're like, oh man, and as many Halloween movies as they had, and as many things that Michael Myers did to get out of stuff, I feel like they're gonna recreate one of the old scenes.
Here's what gets me though about the Halloween movies. Wasn't H2O more or less the same thing as the movie released in 2018, where it continued from the second one instead of branching off the way 4 and 5 did?
I don't really know. I
feel like it did. I feel like the whole what was the girl's name? She's been in a lot of horror movies. She was the young girl in it. What is her name?
Danielle Harris.
Danielle Harris.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
Who actually got killed in Rob Zombie's remake.
Right.
She got naked and got killed in Rob Zombie's remake, and I was very happy for the nudity in the remake because she's hot now. She's real hot.
Definitely. Aside from that, though, kind of ignoring the events of 3 and 4 is what H2O did.
Yeah.
And the most recent release did the same thing.
Yeah.
So you have two branching paths of Halloween movies that are continuance of the original first two films.
Oh yeah. And to me, with Halloween, and I'm not going to do this with the other horrors, but Halloween, since it's the most recent and most relevant, made movie so far right now, is I'm going to go and say with Halloween, my favorites were original, no doubt, 1978, the first. There's no beating 1978. Second is the remake. The remake was very well. A lot of people crapped on it, but people were going to do. I thought they did it very well. It's one of the best ones. Third, part 2. The original part. I loved part 2. I hated they skipped part 2. I liked part 2 there for a while better than part 1. And then the Rob Zombie remake, the first one. Second one was hot garbage.
Third obviously had nothing to do with Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Like I said, 4th and 5th kind of went down a different path, and it's almost like they retconned that with it from H2O and on, and ignore 4 and 5, and I guess 6 too.
Oh yeah. I mean, dude, where I
basically you can watch it as two different timelines. You can watch the original '78 movie. You can watch 1, 2, skip 3, 4, 5, 6, and then or go 1, 2, H2O, and stop there, or 1, 2, and the movie from 2018.
Yeah, and
so there's 3 ways you can go with that.
Where I checked out at the one when they were doing the whole cult shit with him, when he had a tattoo on his hand.
Oh, is that the one with Paul Rudd in it?
Yeah, with Paul Rudd. And I was just kind of like, well, what the fuck? And then some of those masks they had in some of those movies, there was a mask literally where it looked like Michael Jackson's face. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is supposed to be a weathered, beaten William Shatner mask.
Oh, right.
Like, why the fuck? Like, he's not the king of pop. He's not going to do the moonwalk and shit. Like, just kind of go, wow, grab his crotch and then stab somebody in the face. Like, even though I would have, that would have been awesome for me. But, Jesus Christ.
So, while you guys were talking, I was thinking in my head, all these silent killers with their, they don't speak much, whatever. But the only person that is, I still come back to it, is fucking Chucky.
Oh, yeah.
Because I can't suck his dick. He ain't got one.
I mean, he might have a little. Well, no. How did?
Wait
how,
a minute. Wait. Yes.
Him and Tiffany had sex.
Yes.
Yeah, and they had a kid.
It's a little nub.
So, you remember she gave him shit in the movie for that. Like, that's the thing, and that's the thing too is that I appreciate it because
they had a long drawn out scene of them.
Jennifer Tilly, who
it's like a fucking Ken doll, man.
Growing up because of her knockers, Jennifer Tilly was hot, and she played Tiffany in those movies, and just. I mean, Chucky for some really, I find the only bad Chucky was that remake. I haven't seen it. I didn't even see it from the commercial. I was just like, this just looks like hot garbage.
Bonnie on Family Guy.
And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a break very shortly. We're gonna be back from our break with Aubrey and Chris from the Hollywood Horror Museum.
Dick, man.
But first, before we do that, we're gonna get into our beer of the week, which is Paulaner Original Munich Lager. So, Matt, I know you said this is a little bit more down your alley, a little bit more of what you like.
Yep. I definitely like darker beers. This is like a dark beer, but this is more my alley.
Yeah, anything
shit I like.
Yeah, anything German is a win. I mean, last week we had the Tiger beer. We had the Tiger's blood in us. So it's not as bad as the Four Loko when, we go to a different world, which we need to explain that to Mike what happens when the Four Loko comes out. And of course, Mike with his Coca-Cola. So, I'll take that upstairs and mix that with some Crown for Jess, and that'll be that. But yeah, Paulaner.
I'm a weak man, Mike.
I like it. I like it. I like it better than what was that? The Peroni. I like it better than Peroni. The Peroni actually wasn't bad second go around, but Paulaner solid. Get out, get yourself some Paulaner. And what we're going to do, we're going to take a break. For those of you on Facebook Live, we will be back momentarily with Chris and Aubrey from the Hollywood Horror Museum. We're going to learn all about the Hollywood Horror Museum, and we will be right back. Gentlemen, welcome back to the Happy Hour podcast. We're now being joined by Chris and Aubrey. They're representatives of the Hollywood Horror Museum. How you guys doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing great. Good.
Now, the Hollywood Horror... we noticed at the Hollywood Horror Museum, pretty much you guys, if I'm right, you guys were getting ready to open, and then COVID happened, and that kind of pushed it back a little bit. Is that correct?
Good. Unfortunately, I mean, we were nearing opening, and then unfortunately all this went down, so it's put on hold till next year.
Okay, and the Hollywood Horror Museum, can you guys give a little bit of a backstory of how that came to be?
Well, sure. It came to be because originally there was going to be a Hollywood Science Fiction Museum, which there still is going to be, and the founder kept receiving offers for props and items that were horror related, and he's like, okay, this doesn't really merge with the sci-fi idea. So eventually he said, okay, well, why don't we also do a horror side as well? And it just kind of grew from there.
Well, that's kind of cool. So really, the museum itself is going to be science fiction and horror. So with all the attractions, is it a lot of wax mannequins? Is it just props from movies? What all?
Well, the plan for the horror side, is more of a mannequins of different famous horror characters with inside backgrounds from those movies. Basically, with the sci-fi museum, it's mostly like a lot of props and set pieces and things.
Okay, cool.
But for the horror side, it's the majority of it is going to be these different horror characters. That are going to be inside. Like when you walk into that room, it'll be the Shining hallway, or Friday the 13th room, or whatever, with that particular character, and a fully immersive room that evokes that movie.
Well, that's pretty badass.
That's a very novel idea.
Yeah, and
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, right before we went live, we were sitting there talking about various horrors and all that, and with you guys, what do you guys think is your favorite horror / sci-fi, that you guys turn to? Like mine's Friday the 13th. Mike's is Nightmare on Elm Street. What would you guys say is yours?
I mean, if I'm going classic horror, probably Psycho. But I mean, there's, Suspiria, if we're doing Italian horror, that one's great. That's a tough call. A lot of good classics.
We're actually talking.
Okay, well, if you go more newer, you say anything Wes Craven does is cool, but George A. Romero's any zombie thing from him, as long as it's not a live TV show of The Walking Dead, I'm sure.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, anything George A. Romero, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, all those were instant.
Actually, but honestly, for me, my favorite thing, if I think of anything, is Jaws.
Yeah, I forgot all about Jaws. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's basically a horror movie too. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was it? Speaking of zombies, Return of the Living Dead. Those I loved Return of the Living Dead and Return of the Living Dead 2, especially with Tarman. Right. Tarman is legendary with all those, and it's actually kind of funny because the guy who played Tommy Jarvis was in Return of the Living Dead, I think, part 2 or 1 or 2. He was in one of those. And with that, do you guys have an actual George A. Romero exhibit at the Hollywood Horror Museum?
Oh, there'll definitely be a Dawn or Night of the Living Dead. Yeah, definitely. It's one of those will definitely be shown in there for sure. Can't forget George.
Where's the actual physical location of the museum?
Well, was still actually being decided when all this went down. So all the stuff's in storage at the moment until we get that hammered out. And I guess we'll now have our pick of locations after all this blows over. Cause,
a lot of vacant spaces out there, I'm sure.
The Sci-Fi Center is going to open at first in one location.
Gotcha.
And then 6 months after that was going to be the horror side open up. So the Sci-Fi side was all ready to go. Like they had it where they're going to pre-sell tickets for 6 months and everything else, and then COVID hit.
Right. So
that was more set, and then the horror side was coming 6 months later, like at the end of this year. And then the end of this year or beginning of next year after the Sci-Fi started, because that was the initial one. And then with COVID happening and everything else, it kind of changed things, just like for everybody else.
Right.
So you guys must have a pretty big storage unit then. You said everything is in storage. Yeah, that's got to be kind of creepy. Like, could you imagine someone that doesn't know that stuff's in there and they just throw open that storage unit and all that? All that stuff's in there. And like, what the fuck is going on right now?
Yeah, there's a lot more on the Sci-Fi side, like complete movie sets or TV sets, stuff living and stuff like that. The horror side is a little smaller at the moment because we were going to have sets custom built.
Oh, that's great.
Which would be, we have a hallway from The Shining.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
WonderCon. That you walk through the hallway and then you go around and you can do put your head through the door with the axe and everything else, and then you can take pictures with Jack.
That's good. That's awesome. That's awesome.
So it's more. So instead of just seeing piecework, it's kind of an interactive experience.
Right. Yeah, that's what I do. You're walking through the movies or the history of horror movies.
Very cool.
I'm more of the horror side, so I always envisioned the idea of an Alfred Hitchcock aspect when you start or something, and then they would have the beginning of it would be a narrative of what's going on and everything, and then you'd be walking through different parts.
That's a very unique approach. I don't think I've ever heard of anything similar to that before.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a very cool concept.
Yeah, the initial concept is
figures.
Right.
That's
right.
Yeah, and really with that, and now that you mention that, and these guys, I'm not sure how familiar they are with pro wrestling. The only thing that kind of strikes me with that is you've been to WrestleMania before, and you've been to Fan Access, is the Undertaker's graveyard. WWE always went all out for that. They had the headstones of everybody he's beaten at WrestleMania. They had the hearse. They had it was this whole thing.
Galore.
Yeah, he had a whole wing just for himself, and that's what that kind of sounds like to me. Is you go in, and it's like it's all Friday the 13th, or it's all The Shining.
It's an expo hall type event with large exhibits.
Similar to Mark Kelly's the biggest icon in wrestling, as in the biggest gimmick ever.
Yeah.
Maybe not the biggest all-time wrestler, but he had the best gimmick in WWE history. So they better be doing all that for him.
Oh, yeah.
He sold out WrestleMania how many different times? Come on, how many guys did he put over, and vice versa? Because of him, that's how Kane came in, and Glenn Jacobs became a superstar, was because of how they worked together. But that was the greatest gimmick of all time.
Oh yeah, and I'm glad that you said that. Like the Undertaker gimmick, that Phenom gimmick, even when he did the biker, that gimmick went on for so long. You know, normally gimmicks have about a 2 to 5 year lifespan, if that.
The longevity is just unparalleled.
Yeah, and you know,
I don't know. Hulk Hogan was still doing his gimmick from like 30 years ago. So I mean,
but when you look at it too, it's kind of like, you know, you look at it like with Michael Myers, Friday the 13th. That's a gimmick. You know, people don't look at it like, you look at it from wrestling side. And I mean, I've been in the wrestling business 21 years myself. It's like, that is a gimmick that just keeps on going over the years and over the years and over the years. Like, some things lose pace.
Well, and anybody can play him. Just like, you know, you could take a bunch of different characters from different WWE things, but anybody can play him. Heck, Becky Lynch, the man, is Stone Cold Steve Austin's gimmick, right?
Yeah.
So, like, with Michael Myers or Jason, they can literally be, anybody could be in that suit. Played by Jim. Or that character. Not Freddy. Freddy has to be Robert England.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no doubt. Freddie has to be Robert Englund. And, you know, me and Mike have talked about this before, because Mike's big on Nightmare on Elm Street, that I like the Jackie Earle Haley version. I really do.
You're
I
like
don't.
one of three people.
The thing that turned me off was they turned him into an actual child molester instead of a child killer.
He wasn't child molester in the first movie.
Was he?
It was heavily insinuated. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
No, he was a child molester in the first movie. They go through the whole story of it, like in the original cut of it. He was, But the problem is Jackie Earle Haley is creepy and he's not funny.
Oh yeah.
That's when I started getting a little soured on him.
Bad News Bears. You know, and he was great in Watchmen, and he's great in most things, but he was not Freddy Krueger.
Yeah. And it's actually that excitement with Robert Englund actually being open to doing Freddy again. That's going to be very exciting.
When he reprised the role for that episode of the Goldbergs, that made my day, man.
Yeah.
Robert Englund's so great.
And with that, well, it's funny because it looked like the Goldbergs, when he did that episode, it looked like that they didn't do the makeup around his eyes. It looked like Freddy, but it looks like that they didn't complete the makeup. I don't know if they didn't do it on his eyelids or what, but it looked like his eyes were kind of like a mask type thing when they did that makeup.
I never saw the Goldbergs, so I don't know.
Yeah, I can tell you.
Robert Englund guest starred on Chuck, even though he wasn't in the makeup. He was Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what he is. He's Freddy Krueger. He can be back in another Star Trek episode.
Yeah.
He's Freddy Krueger.
And what about Leatherface? Do you guys have anything Leatherface oriented at the museum?
There's plans to have such a
there's
obviously the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is such a big thing. So and then based off of a true story, you know, in that aspect of where it goes through, and it's a big thing. The only problem when it comes to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, most guys that play Leatherface, or not most guys, the last couple guys that play Leatherface are generally crazy. So it becomes like, you know, I fear that there might be real skin somewhere.
I never thought about it that way, and we were talking about this too. What were you guys' take on Terrifier? Because I mean, to me, I felt it was a little bit different for being a direct to DVD release. I feel it kind of raised the bar a little bit. I did not expect the level of gore and the level of insanity that was in that movie for a directed. And Mike was telling me for months, he's like, "Dude, you gotta watch it. Dude, you gotta watch it." And I'm like, "All right, fuck it."
What most gets to release horror movies are gore without really substance. I mean, I used to work with a lot of indie horror people, and they throw more gore at you because they don't know what else to do.
Well, it's kind of how the path went with the.
You know, it's not creative. Like, okay, my favorite, I'm an Alfred Hitchcock fan, and I'm a Wes Craven fan.
Yeah.
And like, Scream wasn't gory, but it was witty, and it was, you know, and it had essence to it.
it's one of these endings you did not see coming at all.
Was about stylish and building the theater style and building motion and stuff. And you get a lot of independent people now. What they do is they just throw blood at it.
Yeah.
With the interactive aspect of the museum, you kind of triggered my memory a second ago, talking about how things gore for the sake of gore, like the Saw movies. They just progressed and got just more shock after shock after shock, and that's kind of what it became. That would probably be a good theme for a room in there.
Like the Saw movies? Oh, I'm sure. But I mean, he's so like the little doll, and on the tricycle would be really cool. Rolling by a bed with a person being cut in half. That's kind of cool. But it's still still generic. After the first one was amazing.
Oh yeah.
And it had a good cast in it, and things you didn't expect to happen. After that, it's kind of like, okay, this is obvious.
Yeah. And I also feel like with the Saws, I feel like they rushed them too much. Like when you look at the old school horrors like Halloween, and then Halloween 2 came out, 2 years later? And then, you had Friday the 13th, and then the second one came out a few years later. You had that wait. So when it came out, you were actually kind of, excited. But when they started releasing sequels a year apart from each other and all that, you're just kind of like, oh, well, I haven't had time to forget it. So now you're releasing another one.
So much of those later movies spent so much time trying to explain connections with other things, and it got a little too convoluted. It kind of just took away from the whole thing.
When you want to put in your plot a charming while you're there and spend 10 minutes on screen doing it, there's probably something wrong.
Right. Agreed.
And in your take, what would you guys say if there was we're in a world of remakes now with movies. If there was a horror remake that they could do, what would you guys choose as a horror remake?
That's a tough question because they've really tough.
Yeah.
Four things. I mean, they didn't remake Chucky. Come on.
That remake of Chucky, I didn't watch it from the trailer because of how much of garbage it looked like. However, the series seems like that might be pretty decent.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? Chucky was more serious in Ready Player One than he was in the new movie. I mean, I don't know. I would like to see the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street with Robert Englund. That's what I want to see. Or continuation.
Would you say Robert Englund with him as a human form?
Say that again?
Would you say Robert Englund, like, before he was actually the Dream Stalker?
More of a prequel type thing?
I wouldn't know because then you're going to have kids getting molested and stuff, and I don't think we need enough of that. But they can do that.
That's true.
I would see a continuation of or a reboot of it, or a continuation of his first films. Because let's be honest, Wes Craven's New Nightmare is actually really good if you really look at the layers. And so there's things they could do with it. If you go back to the beginning and do before Charters, you remember Robert Englund made that first movie in 85, 86. I can't remember the exact when the first one came out. But he, and then now we're in 2020, so it's come out 2022. That's like 30 years later. Are you gonna CGI like his face as Robert De Niro in the Irishman? I mean,
if I could pick one, I would say honestly a good remake. I think a good remake could happen for Phantasm. If any of you guys have seen Phantasm, I love.
You would have to kill a couple people that are really alive still that own the rights to Phantasm.
Like, I felt the first Phantasm was kind of the second one, I feel the second one was the best one out of the whole series. That's when the tall man became scary.
Yeah. Well, that certainly went ways you didn't expect with part 2.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just crazy how much. And what about this? And we didn't think about this earlier. Reanimator was great for its time. That was such a weird movie.
It was kind of remade a couple different times, in different forms with different names. Every zombie movie is a remake of a Romero or version of it, right? Even Zombieland, and that's not the comedy version. Any vampire movie, you go back to the folklore of Dracula.
Yeah.
If you go I would love to see a couple of the classic Universal monsters redone.
Oh, that would be
filmography in a good way. Not the crap that Universal was trying to do, make them action fantasy with like Dracula, Uncle Dracula, or like The Mummy with Tom Cruise. It's not about the money; it's about Tom Cruise. With I guess Jekyll and Hyde, and stuff. That was dumb. But a true horror remake of and not like the Invisible Man crap that came out this last year either. I mean, a true ideology back to the original stuff. That would be cool. But I'm a historian when it comes to old classic horror movies because I'm a sociologist by trade, which is why I'm so fascinated about horror movies because it's an intersection. Kind of like a lot of directors use horror movies as a way of giving a sociological experiment. That's what George A. Romero did with Walking Dead.
Yeah.
The civil rights movie. And stuff like that. So I would, if you really get in the nuts, I would love to see a true remake of. Oh, what about the Monster Squad from the '80s?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Monster Squad. We should do that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Monster Squad's a good one. And a couple of people on our Facebook live feed, they commented Dead Alive. Dead Alive. That I forgot completely about Dead Alive, and they said especially with the lawnmower and kicking the baby. I mean, some of the stuff in that. Let's see. Also, Pumpkinhead. Pumpkinhead was mentioned too.
Oh yeah,
some of the Pumpkinhead movies were, they were kind of like a monster of their own. Pumpkinhead was slightly a little bit different from some of the other stuff that was out. I heard that they're thinking about remaking. What is it? Wrong Turn, I think. Wrong Turn. I think they're remaking Wrong Turn, which may be a wrong turn.
It might be a wrong turn.
They needed to stop. And Henry Rollins. I mean, I think they jumped the shark for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's see what with the horror museum now. You guys, we talked a lot about horror. Sci-fi wise, what sci-fi setups do you guys have for the museum?
Okay, well, all right, sure. Well, we've got the whole bridge from the classic Enterprise from original Star Trek. We got the whole bridge from Next Generation Enterprise D. We've got the bubble ship from Oblivion. We've got a number of other little smaller bits and pieces. But those are the main set pieces we've got right now.
There's also King Kong's head, which you could put.
Oh, of course, King Kong's head. That's true.
That's cool.
The power loader from Alien.
Power loader from Alien.
Horror.
Yeah, but it would be true. True. Yeah.
Man, you guys are gonna have a pretty decent setup going on.
And there's an alien, right? There's an alien that you could put on that we could put on the power loader for photo ops and whatnot. Yeah.
That's good shit. Now for the photo ops and all that, are you guys going to do it to where it's an interactive thing? Like, we go to a lot of places where you can pretty much, like, I went to Mexico, and in Mexico, if you like jump off the cliff, you can like press a button, and as you're jumping off the cliff, it'll take a photo. Will it be the kind of thing where you're there and you hit a button and you can put the head on and it takes the photo?
Were you drunk? Jumping
No, in the sci-fi stuff, it would be they're more big set pieces where everyone can get in. They could like in Star Trek, you can put the uniform on and get it to like you're part of the crew.
That's
cool. And that's because we've done that in events. We've done that at Comic Cons and stuff like that. And then like when you go to the sci-fi side, part of the Shining thing is we have people getting killed with the axe. And stuff like that. And you can have it where people are terrorized or freaked out because Jack is right there. Because that statue looks like he's coming at you. Like it's Jack Nicholson from 1981 in Colorado, and he's going to kill you. I mean, so it just depends on what it is. Like we have access for that statue when we go to events. Heck, we have some pride shirts people can put on. It's just the immersive interactive thing is getting people more involved in it. So kind of like in Seattle, how they do their museum and stuff like that, because you could walk through stuff and take pictures with it, or you could be a part of it.
Yeah, and speaking of The Shining, I feel like The Shining, I don't think they should ever do a remake of The Shining. I feel like they should leave that alone.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I mean, they did. But
yeah, they had that shitty one that came out. Yeah. But what was it?
They also remade Psycho with Vince Vaughn also.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then what was it? They had that shitty Pet Cemetery that came out a couple years ago.
I watched 7 minutes of it.
It was so... I sat through it, and it was so bad. And my wife's not a big horror fan. I sat there, I'm like, my wife can make it through this. Like, she'll sit there and watch this, be like, hey, this is...
The 2 It movies that were done in theaters were actually not bad. You know, because they really did it as a TV movie originally. So when we made those and made them actual theatrical releases, they weren't bad. Yeah. And of course, in that, the first one's always going to be the one that gets you because they're kids, not when they're adults. You don't care about adults. You care about kids.
Yeah.
Why do you think so many people love Stranger Things? It's because they're kids.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the big thing, you know. Like Pennywise terrorizing. The kids, like I felt more for the kids. It makes 100% sense. But how do you guys feel about the It remakes?
I
liked the first one.
Yeah,
I thought they did quite a good job with the first one.
I think they did an amazing job. Yeah, like that. Yeah, you sit there and you watch it, and nothing will ever beat Tim Curry. Tim Curry, I would never expect Tim Curry to do Pennywise the way that he did Pennywise. And, you know, of course, he was in Mystery Science Theater, 3000, all that. He just, with that new one, Bill Skarsgård, he made Pennywise scary again.
Yeah. Okay, so when you go with like Tim Curry, I made the worst mistake ever though. I watched Tim Curry in National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon 1 with Amelia Estevez and Samuel Jackson. Girl Scout and Wilderness Girls and with William Shatner. And ever since that, no matter when I see that movie, if him is the clown, he's a wilderness girl. So I ruined that TV movie for me. So when I watched the first movie, remake Chapter 1, it was done great again because the kids, you believe the kids are scared. You believe what's going on. You believe it. You believe in when you watch the second part, you're never gonna fully be immersed as much because they're adults. But it was still done well. It was entertaining. It was so entertaining. I have a statue of Pennywise in my house.
Nice. And I feel with that movie, and we were talking about earlier, that when Chucky came out, they released the My Buddy dolls. And my parents terrorized me with the My Buddy dolls. And I feel when it came out, all I thought of when I saw it was Bozo the Clown. If you remember the Bozo the Clown show, and the kids always threw the balls into the damn buckets, and you're like, those little bastards are, winning stuff. And then you see it, and it ruined clowns for me. I had never, to this day, I do not like clowns because of the original.
I know a lot of people.
It ruined Red Balloons for people.
Yeah.
Red Balloons somewhere, and they would freak out. Let alone a clown. Right?
And what we're going to do real quick, guys, we're going to get into our game Ode to Humanity. And which one of you guys want to read these off? What we're going to do, the way we do it over the podcast, is we're going to read you guys the black face card, and then we're going to read you the options of what you would choose. And if you guys want to, whatever, each one of you want to choose a certain answer for it, for whatever you want, and we'll just do it that way.
Okay.
Are you ready, Matt?
Yep. So, okay, the black card is... Why am I broke? Okay, the first one is cock, hot people, my relationship status, that thing that electrocutes your abs, daddy issues, and Sean Penn.
Sean Penn. It's always Sean Penn's fault.
That's that thing that electrocutes your abs.
So Sean Penn and that thing that electrocutes your abs.
Okay.
Nice. All right, guys. What we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and let you guys go. We know you're busy getting stuff in order and doing stuff for your jobs and all that. We appreciate you guys coming on, talking to us about the Hollywood Horror Museum. You guys get any commercials once you're opened up, shoot them our way. Yes. We'll put them up on the program and all that, or anything else coming up. Let us know. Once again, it's Aubrey and
great.
Chris. Thanks for joining us, guys, and we'll see you later.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right, thanks.
No problem.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, so guys, there you have it. Those guys were actually pretty cool, pretty informative. You know, those, and I mean, that's the thing, and you kind of expect that with the Hollywood Horror Museum. You know, they're going to know their shit. And I mean, it would kind of be redundant if they didn't know their shit. You know, I mean, they're opening the museum, but dude, the building that they're going to have, that's going to have to be a big ass building. They got some cool
shit. You
shit.
said they're building full-fledged set pieces.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like,
do you remember? I'm sure you do. Going to the House of Cards prop building.
Yeah.
I would imagine it's a similar kind of deal where everything you saw in that TV
it was
show.
Veep. We went to Veep. We delivered the House of Cards, but we actually went to the Veep set.
The actual set,
where
right.
Veep was being filmed,
yes.
and we saw everything there for Veep, and yeah, it was just crazy all the shit that they had.
My point was, even just as far as the storage aspect, how much of House of Cards stuff was in there. Like it was just incredible. It was warehouse rows and rows.
Yeah. Oh,
pallets.
dude,
it was so much stuff.
I'm so super fucking jealous that that's on the other side of the country, because that would be something that I would totally go to in a heartbeat. That'd be something that me and you would go to and enjoy ourselves.
It'd be a regular stop.
4 hours. And you know, I mean, those guys were great. And I mean, we even brought up some movies that I had long forgotten about when we were talking earlier. One being Reanimator, which, you know, those guys brought up a little bit that the remakes for Reanimator were a little weird. I think there was Bride of Reanimator, which was garbage. Beyond Reanimator, that was garbage. And then they had regular Reanimator. And to me,
like he had mentioned, it was just another twist on the zombie theme.
Oh yeah,
which is fine.
Which was an H.P. Lovecraft story.
Ways, right?
That was an H.P.
I cannot believe we didn't bring him up.
Yeah,
oh man.
Oh.
Okay. Love
All right, let's call him back.
Perfect thing to bring up. Wow.
But no, I mean that was
the ball hard on that one.
That was the whole thing, the whole H.P. Lovecraft story, and you know, it's the thing that the thing that resonates with me with that movie more so than anything. People are going to think I'm a sick bastard for this, but I don't care. The part that resonates with me is the part when the dude's holding his head, and his head's going down on the chick while he's holding the head. You're never going to see anything like that.
See something like that.
Anywhere else in any other type of movie, aside from, you know, something like that. And that's always resonated with me. Or when he would put the head on the spike in the little, you know, the little can that he kept it in.
Now you mentioned Phantasm earlier, and you said, and they agree with you, that Part 2 was the superior movie.
Oh yeah.
I never saw 2, and to be honest, didn't really care for the first one.
I see. The first one kind of turned me off, but then I watched the second one. The second one, they actually, I didn't realize this, that they had made a fifth. There was 2, 3, 4, and then there was a fifth that was made, I think, in 2013. I think right before Angus Scrimm died. It was the last time he had played the Tall Man, and Angus Scrimm made the Tall Man just so fucking unbelievably scary. And the Tall Man, does that kind of
now the character itself, I can understand the inherent fear with it, but again, the movie itself just didn't jive with me, didn't resonate. I'll have to check out 2 though.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 2.